Welcome to this week's Ask Energy question, and this one comes from Jennifer. Jennifer is wondering what my recommendations are for the post-menopausal female who is trying to lose weight. Wow, this is a big one to unpack. So let me just start kind of current situation where we're at now. There's a lot more research being done on females currently. There hasn't been traditionally. So we're starting to understand things a little bit more, but it's not going to be for years, right? Because when research is done, obviously it takes a while to get all that data. Now, there are some professionals out there, PhDs, some researchers, some doctors, some influencers, social media experts, right? Everybody seems to be talking about different things. It's kind of like diet books if you think about it, right? So all these diet books are out there. And if you just take like little pieces from each book and put them together, it's pretty sound advice, right? So that's what I'm going to try to do here, right? So knowing that this whole weight loss in the postmenopausal time of life is a huge Pandora's box, right? We do not have exact recommendations at this point. In fact, I would argue that while I am going to answer this question, it's very difficult for me to because it all comes down to N of one, right? For you specifically, the postmenopausal female who's trying to lose weight, you are going to have a different plan than your friend, than your other friend, than your other friend, right? It's going to happen because of genetics, because of lifestyle, right? It's just so please take that into consideration as I'm taking these bits and pieces and providing them to you. Okay. That said, let's look at three areas that I look at when looking at weight loss for the postmenopausal female. The first one is I'm going to kind of cover from easy to more difficult. Stress management techniques. So stress management techniques like visualization, meditation, long nature walks, like kind of unplugging from technology, that kind of thing, even maybe some yoga, breathing, that kind of just anything like that that can lower your stress can actually influence hormones in your body to help reduce stress hormones specifically, i.e. cortisol, right? And that could lead to weight loss, right? Or better weight loss success, let's put it that way. Okay, so that's probably the easiest one. Second one is exercise. Exercise we know is very important, but it's super confusing these days. Should I do zone two? Should I do high intensity intervals? What should I do, right? Well, of course, this is going to be kind of one of those things I pick out, but what we know about postmenopausal time and weight loss is that muscle matters. So strength training is extremely, extremely important. I personally recommend my clients, my female clients who are in their postmenopausal age and in developmental stage, is to strength train 3 times a week. And that means lifting or moving heavier things than their body. Okay. It could be in a gym, fitness center, it could be your home gym, whatever, right? 3 times a week doing that. Doesn't have to be for long, right? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? Doesn't, you don't have to be there forever, but you have to be concentrated and focused. So strength training 3 times a week. Mobility practice. So mobility is basically improving joint range of motion and flexibility. I honestly think everybody should do that every single day. So you think of like stretching, I think more of dynamic stretching. So, instead of just, putting your leg up on a post or something and trying to stretch out your hamstring, doing like, soldier walks or something, doing something dynamic to promote more flexibility and mobility in your hips, in your spine, right? Even just like little twists like this. This is a mobility exercise, right? As we get older, we need to improve our mobility so we are more successful with our strength training in our aerobic exercise, right? Beautiful thing. Back to mobility training. Mobility practice, mobility training every single day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. Like do it if you're watching TV. Do it if you're just hanging out and you don't have anything to do, right? It's super easy to do. You don't need to go anywhere. You can just do it privacy in your own home. Okay. Third part of exercise is aerobic exercise. Yes, it is important. But listen, if you want to lose weight and you're postmenopausal, you need to focus on muscle first, right? Now, aerobic exercise, think of like that zone two, right? That's being overpopularized these days. It's very important, don't get me wrong. But overemphasizing that aerobic exercise versus strength training is not going to help you lose weight. Oh, wait, but it burns more calories. Well, yeah, you're burning calories, but you're not doing anything for your muscle, and muscle is more metabolically active, right? So focus more of your time on the strength training, maybe with your zone two, maybe you're walking, hiking, running, like whatever you're doing, right? Make it enjoyable. It doesn't have to be difficult. Maybe do that 2 or 3 times a week if you can. 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day, that'd be great. Just a couple times a week, right? Now, here's my other one that I'll loop in here. So we've got strength training, we've got aerobic exercise, we've got mobility, right? Also doing some type of high intensity exercise. So this is like a threshold. This is zone 4, this is zone 5. This could be like a Tabata workout where you're going 20 seconds on as hard as you can, 40 seconds off and rest, right? There's a whole bunch of things you can do. The basic is that you challenge yourself from a high intensity perspective because that will help your mitochondria, that will stimulate more of your fast twitch muscle fibers. And we know all of that is important for weight loss. So don't just go for walks, right? So go for walks a couple times a week, but then do one time a week with high intensity training. Just one, right? 20, 30 minutes. That's it, right? 3 times a week strength training, and almost every single day mobility practice for a few minutes. That is like a pretty good, solid training plan, if you will, for losing weight in the postmenopausal period. Now, the last one, which is very intricate, this is nutrition. Now, I mean, you look at any website, you listen to any podcast, someone's going to tell you something different, right? And listen, it's very difficult for me to answer this question because really what it comes down to when it comes to nutrition for losing weight in the postmenopausal period is looking at hormones first, right? Hormones will drive or should drive your nutrition choices and your nutrition plan. Here's what I mean. In the postmenopausal period, well, actually any time of your life, right? Have your hormones measured, right? Because if you have hormone misfirings, which all of us do, that just means the hormones are not doing what they should be doing, right? Because they're the messengers that are floating around your body trying to activate certain pathways to do certain things. If those aren't doing what they should be doing, i.e. misfiring, something is going to be holding you back, especially since we're putting this in the context of weight loss. I normally see this all the time. Now, usually in the postmenopausal time, your estrogen and progesterone have gone down, right? But there still might be misfirings. There still might be misfirings in your thyroid. Maybe your testosterone, who knows, right? Maybe your cortisol level, maybe your DHEAS, maybe your vitamin D. Yes, that is a hormone, right? And maybe your insulin. So I've worked with a lot of postmenopausal females who are stuck, right? They can't lose weight, and specifically it's like the belly fat, right? They can't get rid of that stubborn belly fat. And they're like, listen, my estrogen, my progesterone, they're fine. But then we do some hormone testing and we realize, wow, there might be a little imbalance in your thyroid hormones. Your insulin level might be a little bit higher than I like personally, right? I'm a little bit different than some of the Western medicine in terms of looking at the ranges of insulin. And maybe your vitamin D is off. Maybe your cortisol level, maybe, and I've seen this a lot. And by the way, tangent, when you measure your cortisol at your doctor's office, that is a one data point, right? Whatever time you go in there, that's the one data point that shows you where your cortisol level is at. That's not the right one to have measured. What you want to have measured with cortisol is called diurnal cortisol. That's 4 measurements throughout the day. They're just saliva measurements. That will actually give you the cortisol curve. And when I interpret cortisol curves, I look at that curve and how it's responding in the highs and the lows throughout the day. And we can actually see if you're chronically stressed, if you're burned out, if you're just completely like if your cortisol and your stress hormones, your adrenal glands are completely just not functioning that well, we can see that on that cortisol curve. You can't see that with one independent cortisol measurement that you get at your doctor's office. So I digress. Cortisol is super important. A lot of the females I've worked with, we've seen very, very improper cortisol curves that have shown either chronic stress, fatigue, or complete burnout, along with some other hormones that are misfiring. And here's the thing with nutrition. There are certain nutrients that can help with not only cortisol levels, but also with all these other misfiring patterns. So thyroid misfirings, testosterone misfirings, vitamin D misfirings, right? There are all these different nutrition strategies. Sometimes some supplement strategies too are necessary depending on which hormones are misfiring and how much we can actually do with food and nutrients. But the point is that nutrition is important. We know that, right? Protein, extremely important. Fiber, super important. Healthy fats, like your omega-3 fats, yes. But we don't know in what quantities really, because that's where the N of 1 comes into play, right? You as a postmenopausal female may need something different than your friend who is a postmenopausal female also, right? And then the other friend, the other friend, the other friend, right? It all comes down to hormone misfiring patterns. So we really want to emphasize these first, by having them measured. So that's why nutrition is the hardest part of this puzzle, but yet the most important part of the puzzle. So step one when it comes to nutrition, go have a full hormone panel test done. These are the ones at minimum, I would recommend having done. Cortisol or the diurnal cortisol, fasting insulin, thyroid hormones, sex hormones, DHEAS, vitamin D, which again is a hormone, and then two other ones that aren't necessarily hormones, but kind of important in this whole big picture is your fasting blood sugar, your fasting glucose, and then your hemoglobin A1C. Those are just basic ones. I mean, obviously more can be measured. These are basic ones that I use when I work with females and males and look at seeing what is happening in a misfiring pattern to see what we need to do with nutrition and possibly supplementation. Okay. So coming down to it, it is possible to lose weight in the postmenopausal period. Absolutely 100%. Unfortunately, I just think a lot of females, they get very frustrated, right? They're gaining weight or they can't lose weight. It's a little bit more like that stubborn belly fat kind of thing. And they're, I've heard this every single day. It seems like I'm controlling my calories, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, and maybe even too much sometimes. Sometimes it's not only about the calories in and calories out, right? And if you are stuck there and you're not losing weight or you're gaining body fat and you're just counting calories, you're kind of thinking calories in, calories out, that's where hormones come into play. I would guarantee that if you're doing everything you can within your knowledge, nutrition and exercise and balancing that equation, I guarantee something is happening with your hormones that are holding you back. So a lot of times it's really not you, it's your hormones. You need to understand what's happening first to be able to make a plan and create a plan, a meal plan, an exercise plan, a stress management reduction plan. You need your hormone results first in order to create those plans. Okay, if you want more info on that, I actually have a free webinar. It's called It's Not You, It's Your Hormones. Click below, everything's free, right? It would actually give you more information on all of these hormones that I'm talking about and some insights on what to do if you see these hormone misfiring patterns. So anyway, thank you, Jennifer, so much for asking that question. I love talking about hormones because really that's the basis of metabolic efficiency training. If you haven't been following that for the past 25 years or so, it's really about how we put food together to control hormones, right? So anyway, thank you very much. I will see you on the next Ask Energy.